Marriage is an adventure like going to war. That's not my quote. That's from the great G.K. Chesterton. And the more you think about it, the more it makes sense.
Yeah, marriage isn't just romance. It's a battle, not against your spouse, but for them. It's about commitment when things get hard, strategy when life gets messy, and courage when fear creeps in, and surrender when pride gets in the way.
And in honor of Veterans Day, we dedicate this episode to all those who have fought, those who continue to fight for our freedom, because the discipline, sacrifice, brotherhood that soldiers live by have a lot to teach us about love. G.K. Chesterton also says that a true soldier doesn't fight because he hates what's in front, is because he loves what's in back.
So today we're diving into this deep idea that marriage is like a war. And we'll talk about what we're really fighting against: the selfishness, the distractions, the things that lie to you and say you deserve better, and how to build a strategy to win the daily battles together.
Because just like in war, victory in marriage doesn't come by accident. It comes through training, trust, and total commitment to the mission that God has put us together for. So if you ever felt like your marriage is a battlefield, or you're just wondering how to fight with your spouse instead of against them.
Oh, how to fight with them instead of against them.
Exactly. How do we fight together in a unified way?
Because in this episode, we are unpacking what it really means to go to war for love and how to come out not just surviving, but victorious.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Couple Having Fun with Faith, Family, and Friends. I'm your co-host, Bobby Fredrickson. With me, as always, my beautiful wife,
Katie Fredrickson.
I'm the convert Catholic, and she's the
cradle Catholic.
And here we are on a brand new episode. We're going to be talking about marriage, but we came across this quote, and we thought it was interesting and thought-provoking and a little provocative. So we're going to start with the quote, and then we're going to try to unpack it the best we can. It's from one of my favorite authors, G.K. Chesterton.
He's very pithy in and of himself, right? Would you say he's pithy?
He's very just bright, I would say.
Smart.
G.K. Chesterton says, marriage is an adventure like going to war. So when you hear that, marriage is like going to war, automatically you think adversarial, against each other, fighting each other, that one side has to win. So we're going to unpack what that means, how that is actually true. G.K. Chesterton is a Catholic. He's very serious and taken very serious by many people in all his writings. But we're going to unpack some of the things about war that are very similar to how it is in a marriage, which is having strategies, having courage, commitment. One side usually has to surrender, all these different war principles.
So you can look at this in two ways. This could be two soldiers fighting on the same side together, right?
Could be.
And then on the other hand, it's having the strategies of, the military strategies that need to be put in place on how to live with each other. I don't know. Yeah. I like a better thinking of us being soldiers together in a war. You saw it as against each other in a war? Because the objective there is to kill each other, right?
Well, or make the other person surrender.
I don't think that's what he meant, but let's
well, the first part though, the first part is that it's an adventure. Mm-hmm. So I think that is, at least for me, what's really attractive about the Catholic faith and marriage in general is that it is an adventure, is that every day is so different, that God is calling us to something to be greater than ourselves, to live outside of ourselves, and to lay down our plans, because his plans are way better for us, which is, it's kind of scary. Obviously, when you do surrender, you take your hands off the wheel and give it to Jesus, that you don't know exactly where it's going to go. But when you have that complete trust, you know that he's going to be with you. It's going to be exciting.
But again, I think that if you look at this, that, the adventure going to war, you think of two people who are embarking on a battle together. And I think that's how you really need to look at that quote, is that it's two people that it's kind of like an assumption that's saying, like, this is going to be really difficult and there's going to be things that come against us.
You're sure it's not a war against each other?
Oh my gosh. I hope that's not what it is.
Well, what I keep joking about is tongue in cheek, because we've talked about it on the show in Genesis. When we look at when God gave Eve to Adam, the term that he uses in the Hebrew is ezer kenegno, which literally translates to beneficial adversary.
Mhm.
And I look at you sometimes in my life in real time. I really don't like it. I don't like it, but I know that it's for my benefit when there are things that you remind me of, that the way I should be talking, the way I should be living, the way I should be with my children, the way I should do things. And in real time, I'm like, yeah, shut up. Like that's my ego and my self-centeredness.
Yeah, shut up.
But when we look back, we are stronger together. You see a lot of my blind spots. I see a lot of yours. In the same way, when I try to show you your blind spots, you're not too happy about that either.
I don't like it. No.
And I think that that's where marriage is. It's a war where we go to die to ourselves. And that the other person, if we trust each other, that we can bring the best out of each other, because sometimes we don't see those blind spots. We're so engulfed in what we're doing and we miss a lot of the periphery. And I think, especially in parenting, especially in just doing a lot of things, it's like two heads are better than one. And when we are fighting on the same side with the strategy, with the same goals and the same purpose, that we can achieve way more together. That's why it's so hard for, my heart goes out to those single moms and single dads, because I could not imagine trying to raise our kids on my own. It's like, it's very, like, for example, today we just put in all the schedules. Now Braden's got basketball, Avery's got volleyball. It's like, okay, we're already like, okay, you got to take this one here and I got to go there. It's divide and conquer, just a lot like in war. It's like, yeah, you flank this side, then you come over for the top. It's like, it is like a war.
I'm telling you, we're soldiers fighting together. But you know what? At the same time, I think that let's focus on this strategy, because strategy could be so many things. We need to have a strategy for, how we're going to just do the day-to-day things in life together. We're life partners, we're roommates, we're sharing space, right? So there needs to be a strategy around that aspect of it all, right? There needs to be a strategy as life partners who are also raising tiny humans, right? We need to be on the same side of things, because that could be another thing that we're battling against, right? Is that they are the enemy sometimes, in the sense of they're going to be fighting it. They're in opposition against us in some things, against our orders, against our structure.
Orders.
Yeah,
we tell them these are the orders, this is what to do, and we got a lot of insubordination.
Like the Von Trapp family over here. I need a whistle. I mean,
well, if we're going to be honest, though, there is a hierarchy in battle, right? So you got a general, lieutenants, colonels, privates. So just so we're on the same page of this war.
Are you the general?
What? The man is the head of the household, yes or no? Well, let's just agree. Biblically, what does it say? Man is the head of the household, right? I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Not that I'm to lord it over.
To lord it over, right? So in military, that's
so
like
I'm
in
meant
a
to
different.
Be the first one to die. That the captain goes down with the boat, right?
Yeah.
So I'm willing to go down with the ship. I just want to be clear about where we're at with the hierarchy and orders and stuff. I just want to know where we stand. I just want to know where we stand.
I was going somewhere else with strategy.
All right, let's hear the strategy.
So think of all these things you do need to have strategies for. You can't just, you need to have a plan of action with regular everyday things. How we have to be on the same page in some way of how we'll be parents, right? How we're going to raise our children. And then to have a strategy of fighting for time together, fighting for the relationship, fighting for that time to reconnect, to nurture our relationship, because it's something that needs to have, we need to pay attention to it. It can't just be something that we assume or take it for granted, right? So those are all those small strategies.
And what are some of the ways that we practically implement that?
We haven't done a very good job of it, but like carving out date nights and things like that.
No, I'm saying as far as coming up with our strategies, we have done a lot better job as of late, is like on Sundays, sitting down with our calendars, looking at like all the things that we have to do. You're super busy. I have a million things going on as well, but we sit down and like, okay, before the week starts, like, okay, this is what's going on. Sit down. Let's figure out who's doing what, where we're going to go, the logistics. Yeah,
sure. Those are all logistics that everybody has their own.
That's a huge part of war.
Oh, totally.
Logistics. And
okay.
I'd say the war is 80% is logistics. It's just getting yourself, who's going to be where, how it's going to be done, what supplies we need. Like this
That's
is,
true.
it's like lunches and like these things. This is like a war. It's
well,
like
even just
those
who's
things are a big
picking up
part.
who from what practice and what game, right? And how we're going to divide and conquer
But
that.
my point is that takes communication.
Those are battle plans.
You need to also, you can't just have, one person can't just have the plan and just assume that the other person knows what it is.
When one person wants to sit down with said plan, the other person goes, oh.
Well, my point is that we share
all.
a calendar I can look and see. But yeah, there are some times where I am getting better. The last couple of weeks, we did sit down and we went through it in a very exhaustive.
You weren't tortured at all.
No, I was very open to it. So needless to say, I'm learning.
So that kind of strategy is a very cut and dry, black and white, like who's doing what. This is the stuff that needs to get done, right? But also strategies around parenting and being on the same page of discipline or rules that we're going to enforce, or specific things like we both are going to agree that our kids aren't going to have cell phones till high school. Yeah. We're both in agreement that there needs to be really limited screen time. We both worked together to work on a contract for game time and earning of things and earning book money and all that kind of stuff, right? Like once they read books, they earn money, that. So, but we sat down and strategically planned those things together too. And that is where do we stand on this? And we talk about it together before we make an answer to the kids. Are we always so great at that? Sometimes, if it's a new situation and it's just one of us, but typically if we do talk before we make a decision.
But it's also, that's what makes a good battle leader, is somebody, when whatever the situation is, can pivot, can call an audible, can go the other way, can do things where you're not so rigid and just says, no, this is what it says and this is what we have to do. Like, we have to assess what is being thrown our way.
Kids are going to try to divide and conquer you too, right? Like that they're going to, if mom says no, they're going to go to dad. So we need to be united front. We need to be smart with that. So those are all small strategies, right? That are day-to-day things that, and are very important. How we're going to raise our children. What is the logistics of everyday life. But I think, and then obviously this is high, has a hierarchy too, right? Like of importance, and that whole like prioritizing our marriage and things that we're going to do to nurture that. But and that we have to fight for that. That's a huge fight as soldiers together, and as if we're not strong, fighting for our marriage, right?
If we're not there, we can't give what we don't have.
But the biggest fight that we need to have the biggest strategy for is and we really need to. It's so obvious in society right now. The devil hates marriage, right? Like, so in every way possible, an attack on the family and married life is going to be happening, right? So we're also fighting for that. We're fighting against
the devil as well,
right? We're fighting against those spiritual attacks that are going to try to rip our marriage apart. Have you ever noticed, like, I don't know if anyone, listening or watching has ever had this happen. I've listened to a few podcasts on this, that the devil really hates marriage and will try to, everybody gets annoyed with their spouse, right? No. There's you're still roommates, right? There's little things that they do to really irk you, to shred, that bond apart, right? Those little things. But I remember watching something where the lady said that there's a spiritual test you could do if you're getting really angry over something that you wouldn't typically get really angry over, that's not you. That's some kind of influence or temptation, because again, he doesn't want us to get along, right? And so to just already know the enemy's tactics, right? To know, well, I'm getting really mad over that thing that really shouldn't, it doesn't merit for how mad, I'm getting, just to acknowledge it and almost say, come Holy Spirit, to kind of get that out. Yeah,
but we need to know those strategies.
Right.
And I think really good right now, if you're not already following along on Hallow, they're going through the Screw Tape Letter.
Oh, they did that already.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I don't know, is it still available?
Yeah, it's still available, but it was
on the app. Yeah,
it's fully there.
It's Father John Ricardo, who we love, and Jim Caviezel, but it's going through C.S. Lewis's book, Screw Tape Letter, which is a series of letters that the devil is basically writing to a junior demon on strategies on how to get a man and to go to the side of the devil and love, and how to break up families, and how to inflate their pride, and to do all these different things. So the evil one does have a strategy, and there's a hierarchy as far as the choirs of angels and the demons, and they have orders and they do what they're told. So they are, the devil does three things. He's going to steal, kill, and destroy. I mean, that's basically what they're going to do. So he will whisper, he will tempt, he will do those things, and he will definitely try to work on any
Especially
little
if you
crack
get
that you give
closer.
him.
Like the closer, when we first started this podcast, for a long time, almost before every episode, there would be a ridiculous fight over things that were so stupid on both ends.
They still have.
They still have.
Let's be honest.
They
Every
still have
time.
all the time.
Tonight,
This is the first time. I know. This is. I haven't thought about that.
She came down with her makeup on, happy, ready to go.
Right. I look like this all the time.
Well,
Let's not do that.
But that's usually when we know it's going to be a good show. So maybe this is going to be a bad show.
Yeah,
but usually, like when it's going to be a really good show,
yeah,
it's like there's
suck.
something that's
fine.
like
I'm not even going to bother them.
Yeah, it's like, but yeah, tonight has been pleasantly good. So maybe we'll see.
Maybe I'm not as stressed out. No, but I think that again, strategies can have a hierarchy in and of themselves. So you have the small day-to-day ones, and your marriage, and then honestly,
the hard one, which is if you're not on the same page about faith.
Right.
That is a big one. And we know that a lot of people do struggle that, there are, the dad doesn't go to church, or the mom doesn't go to church, or one is maybe Protestant, one is maybe Catholic. So that is a big angst, and that is a way to put a wedge in between couples and families as well. So if you're on the same wavelength, okay, we're going to raise our kids in the Catholic Church, then well,
what if you're not, but you're still married? Like, there's still ways that, again, acknowledging having a strategy around that and saying we're of different faiths, so we're going to have this plan of action to make sure that we're okay. And you know what I mean? Like, so just honestly knowing. Yeah,
I heard a really great, especially, with the vice president, he's Catholic and his wife is Hindu. And
that's like completely.
They had a huge discussion about how they're going to raise their kids, and their kids have been baptized and receive the sacraments. They're going to raise their kids in the faith. So that was a discussion that they had to meet, and she'll still go to mass with them, but then she still does her own things too. But that they had to have that conversation that, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that to have those open lines of communication in a war, in a battle, it's very important to know what's going on in the front lines.
Yeah.
What's going on, in the battle plans. Are we losing ground here, or are the troops, deserting? We got a bunch of deserters here. The kids are not on the plan that we laid out. We gotta reel them back in. They're going AWOL. Strategy. Next thing you know, they're AWOL.
Yeah.
We gotta put them in the brig. Yeah.
Anyway, that's one aspect of how it's like war. Maybe this isn't a good episode. No, I'm sorry. No, it's funny. I'm just kidding. But other ways that it's like a war, we said commitment needs courage. Think about if you enlist in a war, there's no turning back, right? And it takes a lot to go marching into it. Right. And I think that it's to not be taken lightly. It's to say that there needs to be courage, and there needs to, but again, we're in it together. We're the soldiers together. We're helping each other out. Where the other lacks, like, I'll carry your bag if it gets too heavy for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, if we really need to think of ourselves as those soldiers together, fighting a good fight.
Yeah,
right.
Well, especially part of the other reason why we wanted to do this, other than that quote, is that, when we're recording this is the day before Veterans Day.
Right.
So there's an actual soldiers and those who had served to honor those as well. And especially those who are separated, that they have to have somebody on the home front, somebody literally at war, and like how to keep those things together. Like, that's an adventure. That's a call. That's a vocation that they're called to. Like, that's very hard. And we have to think about those
sacrificial. There's no greater, it's agape love. It's pure sacrifice. There's no greater love than this, than, he lays his life down for his friends. Yeah. And that's the thing. If marriage is true love, the highest form of love is that sacrificial love. So dying to yourself for the other person is one of the biggest things that you could do. Right. And so it's such a weird quote, but then when you really unpack it, it makes so much sense in so many different facets that you can look at it.
And there's so many battles that we're going to have to fight, whether if you're a real soldier. I also love this other G.K. Chesterton quote, especially about Veterans Day and our soldiers, because we get this image, okay, war, you're a warmonger, you're just going up for war, and that there's a lot of hate involved. But Chesterton says a true soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what's behind him.
Oh, I love that quote.
So
yeah.
we go and we battle. Our battle isn't against people. It's against the principalities and evil powers, right? It's against our own vices and our own selfishness. Marriage is a place where we go to die to ourselves, our selfishness. That's the root of all of the fights within most marriages. It's selfishness. It's like we literally, when we get married, two become one. A lot of times it doesn't feel like that.
But I think you still need to fight for how
your right to party.
Yeah. No, you need to also though fight for, how do I say this without it sounding selfish? Like you can't be a doormat. You can't just let right. You need to fight for
some autonomy.
You need to have, no, you also need to say this is how I want to be loved. This is how I, this is what, so it's walking that fine line between, being completely selfless, that you're miserable and you're a doormat and you get steamrolled by the other person, but then also dying to yourself, that it's not always about you and your feelings and your preferences, right? So it's that constant tension, that constant
and we've
battle.
talked about that.
That's a battle too.
Yeah, there is a battle, but there's also been studies done. I've talked about this before, that within a marriage, there is a golden ratio of positive interactions to negative ones. So what you're getting at is if I'm always getting my way and you never say anything and you're always just dying to yourself, we know what happens is that you start to get resentful. You may not say something, but eventually it will come out one way or the other. And that golden ratio from studies have been 11 positive interactions for one negative one. Because usually what happens is that at some point you have to stick up for yourself and say, whoa. I did the dishes 5 days in a row. Like, can you help do this? Or, hey, can you pick up Johnny? Or, hey, can you let the dog out? Or, hey, can you pay this thing? Or, hey, can you do that? Like, we have to have those conversations. And if one person is always getting their way, and if there's never any disagreement, one person is always getting their way.
Yeah.
And somebody like me, like we've talked about this also, is like within marriages, the turtles and the skunks marry each other. Like, I'm a skunk, so if something's bothering me, I'll just come out and say it. And Katie is more like a turtle, and she's great to die to herself and to just hold it in. But
then I hold it in for such a long time,
and then it comes out not as an explosion. So it's better to have those, but that's where that tension in the battle comes in, because it's for each other's good. It's like one person shouldn't get their way,
right?
And one person shouldn't be the martyr. Because in a true adventure, it's like, it's going to be fun. Sometimes it's going to feel like it's 50-50, but most times it's going to not be. It's just
that's
depending
my favorite
on
quote by your grandmother. And I know I've said this on our podcast a few times. That was one of the best advice I've ever heard her say, to me when we got married, is she said, don't ever expect 50-50, sometimes 70-30, sometimes 80-20, sometimes, and that's so true in different chapters of our lives and where we're at, that we're going to have to pick up the slack for each other. But that again is a great analogy for us being two soldiers fighting a battle together, that you're going to carry my load when I blew my knee out, it's just how it's the give and take. But I like that, like understanding that tension but that right there all comes down to communication and making sure that you are not, it's back to how we should be with all people, like not just, in that aspect of humility and thinking of ourselves less, but not less of ourselves, like having enough, ownership and into what our needs are, but then also more importantly, putting the needs of others before our own.
But also to be vulnerable with each other and have built that trust up. So when you give it to me, when I don't really want to hear that criticism, or I don't want to hear what your opinion is about this thing or that thing, is that I'm going to take that with charity. I'm going to take it that you want the best for me, and I want the best for you.
Oh, that'll be
but it's not easy. It's not easy.
It's easier said than done. Because in the moment,
in the moment, it's your pride.
Yeah.
And your pride, it hurts. It's an instant sting. It's like, ooh, that's my manhood. And look at me. I'm so macho.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
so that's a strategy.
You are usually right. And you're usually trying to get me to heaven I don't know how many times you've had said things. And when you said it, I'm like, shh, quiet. And then I'm like, yeah, you know what? She's right.
But that is a strategy
I am called to be a saint, yes.
in and of itself. to have a conversation that when I feel this, like these things that I need to be able to stand up for myself about something, what is the, like, because there's been times when I've said something and you come back and you're like, that was so rude. Like, and I literally ask, how could I have said that better? How could I have said that differently? What way do you want me to say that? Because I'm still need to say this thing.
Yeah.
But how could I have said that differently? And I'm sometimes genuinely asking. It's not sarcastically,
What was it when we had
And
on Doug Hinderer? He said that.
yeah, it was almost like a 1 minute reprimand thing. Like, when you do blank. Wait, what was it that he said? I had it on the fridge forever.
Yeah, it's like, when you do this, it makes me feel.
Like, it's explaining like your actions are affecting me this way, and I'd like you to please, right? And that's good, but when you've had those conversations and say, this is our strategy on how we are going to talk to each other,
we are going to correct each other.
It still kind of stings,
but you have to have that
it doesn't
conversation
hurt.
ahead of time.
Right.
Because if it's always just
but
comes
that's what I
off,
mean about strategy.
because it's a thin line between nagging and the B word versus, hey, I'm saying, I need you to do this thing, because it can really turn into just all the time. And no matter what I do, it's never good enough. Or it's like, it's really easy to get into that pity party. But when we see it as like, hey, we've built this vulnerability, we built this intimacy, we built this communication, we have this united front on our purpose. It's to get each other to heaven, get our kids to heaven, right? To grow, to be the best version of ourselves, to be excel in our jobs and our vocations, right? But like I said, we have blind spots, and sometimes we don't realize when we are becoming too selfish or too sloppy, or we're laying off the battle
too
plans.
Busy in general to
taking
pay
each other
attention
for granted.
That would be my next analogy then of a battle, would be retreat. That there needs to be times built into your lives, or within, for retreats individually, but then also a retreat as a family, retreat as a couple.
Do that, like you're using the word different. Like the word retreat in a battle would be, okay, this battle's not worth fighting, I need to retreat.
Not always. A retreat can also be, we have some wounded soldiers that need care and attention. We don't have enough to fight right now.
When to stop. I think that's a big thing. When we just want to win no matter what, whether that's not against each other, but whatever we're pursuing, that we are leaving casualties behind. Like, whatever, if we're too overly focused on the mission that we're trying to accomplish, right? That we're leaving.
So are you talking about,
sometimes we're wounded and we don't know that.
That's what I mean. So sometimes
we need to retreat.
Like, I took a 3-day silent retreat, and I needed that as a person. It made me a better wife. It made me a better mom. It made me a better friend. It made me a better daughter. It made me a better person overall. I needed that retreat individually.
Yeah,
but there's other things.
I'm thinking of it more of like,
in a battle, in a fight,
in a fight, whether that's in between, whatever it is to just apologize and just to stop an argument.
Then you can look at it in so many different ways, but it's still an important
like a retreat
thing.
In a battle. Like, retreat is 2 words. Like, a retreat, you're going away, for a retreat to recharge. I'm saying, like, when you're in the middle of a battle, sometimes you got to give up, wave a white flag, and just like back up and regroup.
Yeah,
and a lot of times
that's what a retreat is. But you could do that you could do that for you could do that as a family vacation.
Sure.
You could do that as a couple to get away. You can do that in an argument. You can, let's go to our corners for a minute and cool down.
Yeah, because that's where we have a hard time at times, because a lot of times one side also wants instant reconciliation. The other ones, I need time to let it cool off. Like, I need to just leave the battlefield, and I need to, get my wits about me. Sometimes at least that's for me.
Well, there are, and that
goes with work, and that goes with whatever the battle is, not necessarily just in your marriage. Like, there are times where it's not worth the fight. Sometimes we have to regroup, come back with another strategy, and try to, like, whether that's a coworker, whether it's your boss, or getting a raise, or dealing with whatever it may be. Sometimes going at it head on and having this plan and seeing that, okay, this isn't working. I got to just retreat, regroup, come up with another strategy, and hit it a different way. Maybe a tag team, or
that can be individually or together or as a family unit, right? So.
And then the last one was about surrender, that we have to surrender obviously to God, surrender to each other,
but never surrender to the evil one.
never surrender to the evil one.
Because that's the true battle at the end of the day, right? But I think that, yeah, surrendering your whole self in your marriage to God is probably the most it is the most important
Well, it's
part.
the hardest, but that's because our tendencies are to want to control. We want to know what's going on. I have these plans. I went to college. Therefore, I set up my whole life. I'm going to go to college. I want this job. I want this and this and this. And we know that, when we tell God our plans, he laughs. And it's just like, the more that we can let go of that wheel and take it on. And a lot of times God's plans involve crosses. They involve suffering. It involves hard things, right? The greater responsibility, the more trust he has, a lot of times, but it's hard. And in the moment, we don't understand, because it's not a lot of times what we would choose. And that's part of playing the role that
That's
God
part
has.
of having courage, though,
Yeah,
right?
is to face it, even though you don't understand the battle plans. The general says, take that hill.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's on the other side of that hill, and you do it, and it's you versus 50 people. It's like, man, but we still called to do it. But he says that he's going to be with us even when it's hard, that he's not going to forsake us, that he's going to be with us. But it's hard. So it's having that surrender, that true surrender, what that means, which is hard. Doesn't mitigate what you're in is easy, but it's the only way. Abandonment to divine providence.
There's so many
God's
ways
will.
that you surrender, though, in marriage. You surrender your own self and your selfish needs. You surrender your body. You surrender your your own will, a lot of the time. You surrender your life to your children. There are a lot of different ways that you surrender in a marriage and in a family that is necessary for everybody else to.
Well, what we call it
learn
as
to come
Catholics
together.
is, and what Jesus calls us to do, is deny yourself and carry your cross.
Right.
Right. And the cross, a lot of times, is heavy. A lot of times it's a lot easier when we pick up the cross ourselves. It's still hard, but it's a lot harder when we are refusing to do what God is calling us to do, like Jonah. What happens?
Yeah.
Jonah keeps avoiding what God is trying to get him to do. Next thing you know, he's on the ship. The storms are coming. They throw him off. But then when God pushes the cross onto you, it's 10 times harder versus that I'm going to voluntarily do it. There's something psychologically that works out.
So what does that have to do with marriage, though?
Because within marriage, there's going to be unexpected things that are going to happen. There's going to be crosses that you're going to carry, and that you're going to have to surrender to those crosses.
Your spouse can get really sick.
Spouse gets sick. Your spouse loses a job. A kid gets sick. That when that happens,
like in sickness,
you had all these plans of all these things that we were going to do. We had this big plan, but God threw a cross there, or you or somebody did it yourself, or a lot of we have those crosses as well. Right. Or your wife all of a sudden says she wants to go back to school for another job. It's in a totally different career, or they want to do those are crosses. A lot of times it's those are things that we have to get through. And a lot of times crosses are foisted upon us. There are those ones that we voluntarily pick up and that we want to do, but when they're foisted on us, they're harder because we don't understand it. It's no, it's unfair. It's not right. But if we just kick against them, we don't truly surrender, then it really makes it a lot harder.
Yeah. That's good.
So how is it more like an adventure, though? Let's end a little bit on the adventure part instead of.
Well, you're not in it alone. I think that's what's cool about all of this is that you're not alone. You have somebody to share these things with, whether they're good or bad, sickness or health, happiness, sadness, all these things. It's sharing in the adventure, and an adventure is an unknown thing. It's exciting, and it could
which
have
part about our marriage
things.
has been exciting and an adventure?
I think honestly, I love having our family and watching our kids grow up and taking vacations together, being with them. I think like us together forming forming a family is a huge adventure. Like little people that are just new to this planet for 9 years and 12 years that are experiencing life, and you're with them, accompanying them and helping them grow and not knowing what they're going to be like and their kids. I mean, it's beautiful. You got me all sappy, Bob.
Well, that's what I was going for. I was going for the sappy. No, I was just thinking more like specifically, like what is something, some things have been an adventure. Like I remember, we went on an adventure before we got married. I don't know if I told the story
road
before.
trip?
A road trip for
Yeah.
like 2 weeks. And we literally went on an adventure. She had her convertible Mustang. We didn't really have many plans. We kind of had an idea where we wanted to go, but it was like one of the best trips ever because it was just an adventure. Like we didn't know, we didn't have any plans. We didn't have any days. We didn't have 0 hotels booked. We didn't have anything. We literally jumped in the car, started making phone calls to some friends who worked in hotels. And then we went to Gettysburg and DC.
Yeah.
Then somehow we ended up in Myrtle Beach and then her aunt's place and then their beach house. And then I went to my cousin's house in New Orleans. Like, so we just kind of bounced around, but it was an adventure because we didn't know what was going to happen.
That was fun.
But think
it was
about
like
how fun
less
that
control
is sometimes.
though. Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. I love just getting
and
up
so
and
much
going.
of that is that's trusting in God. Like, okay, this is what's going to happen. But when
And
we're
then
not
just
having
being
fun, it's holding too tight sometimes.
Well, and then
It's a
being
balance.
just with the other person and just enjoying their company. It doesn't have to be all these things we do. It can just, I love a good road trip. See, you don't. I love a good road trip because to me, stopping at the big ball of yarn that,
Well, that's not much of an adventure. That's kind of a snooze
it's like
fest.
stupid. No, I'm saying like the stupid things that you end up doing and the memories you make on the road trip are just as fun.
I really would like stopping like mountains and waters and stuff. Like you like roadside attractions. Like
not just roadside.
You want to call that an adventure? Go ahead.
I'm not going to ever agree with that. I want to look at the
Route 66 is not going to give me my kicks. Thanks.
All right.
So marriage is a war, is a battle, but it's one worth fighting for, and to fight together, to fight against the evil one. So we want to hear from you. How has your marriage been a battle? How has it been an adventure? How have you worked together to try to make this a successful campaign?
What strategies do you have?
Yeah. Share it, and we'll share it with others. If you're really enjoying this podcast, we would appreciate you to hit that subscribe button, share it with other people. You can follow us on the Catholic Couple One. We're on TikTok. We're trying to get this message of just being Catholics out in the world, that we can share the light of Christ in our daily lives, and that the help that you can give us helps get the word out. We would definitely appreciate it. And other than that, we do appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review on, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify. That does help us get it out to more people. So we would definitely appreciate that. God bless you and have a good night.